Hi there, Luke here with episode 30 of our Eurotrip 2020 travel series, where we take you along on a journey that we did in the summer of 2020 to the regions of France, Luxembourg, and parts of Portugal. If you watched our last video, you'll know that we wrapped up our time on the island of São Jorge of the Azores, and that now we were heading to the island of Pico. Pico is called Pico because it has a peak. It has a very large mountain. In fact, it is the highest mountain in all of Portugal. So we decided to visit this island with the aim of seeing some of its natural wonders and even climbing up this mountain, which we did do. So watch this video to see what that experience was like. We took the ferry from Velhas, the town in São Jorge, and we arrived in Madalena of Pico in the afternoon. And at this point, we had communicated with a local taxi guide who gave us a bit of a tour of the island of Pico. Our taxi driver's name was José Leo, and he was a really nice guy who also has some background living in Canada. So there is definitely a common thing where people in the Azores have some connection, either themselves or family who have lived in Canada at some point in their lives. So that was really nice to talk to him about that. He proceeded to take us to the northern part of the island first, and along the way we drove past the UNESCO World Heritage Site vineyards that are called the Paisagem da Cultura da Vinha de Ilha de Pico. This is a particularly special region because of the special properties that the volcanic soil allows for the growing of the grapes for the wines. Because most fruits and vegetables can't really grow in this soil, but grapes are able to do so. So it's a fun, interesting history and really beautiful to see because you have these old vineyards that have been around since the 15th century with these really nice stone path areas that separate the vines from each other. So a really beautiful thing to see and definitely worth checking out if you are on the island of Pico. One of our first stops was at the Zona Balnear do Cachorro, and this is called this because there's a volcanic rock formation that looks like a dog, and cachorro is Portuguese for dog. So that was cool to see, but there are various little walkways that you can enjoy and get nice views of the ocean and some of the crashing waves. So this is a nice spot to visit for some of the interesting volcanic geology that you can see here on this island. Our next stop was to visit the Casa dos Vulcões, and this is an interesting place to learn about the volcanic eruptions and the volcanic activity on the Azores Islands. And there's even a simulator that you can do that gives you an impression of how strong different magnitude earthquakes are. And these were real magnitude readings that have happened at various points in history on the Azores Islands. So that was a kind of fun little treat that we had there to learn more about the geology of these islands. We stopped briefly in the town of Alma by the Museu da Indústria Baleeira, which talks about the history of whaling in the Azores. We didn't visit this museum because we had already visited a museum about the whaling industry earlier on in our trip on the island of Faial, but this could be an interesting thing for you if you are in the area. But we mostly just enjoyed walking around and enjoying the scenery from this particular town. A nice place to stop for some scenic views is at the Lagoa do Capitão, but it was a bit rainy and foggy, so that did dampen our view a bit. But if you happen to be visiting around here, I imagine it would be a nice place to visit to get a nice scenic view. We continued south until we reached the southern coastal town of Lajes de Pico, and we just enjoyed walking around here, exploring the town a bit while walking along the marina and enjoying some of the sunset hues over the city center. There's a really nice scenic viewpoint that you can do that you drive up from this town and you get really nice views of the water and of the town below you. Our last stop was one of the highlights of the day, and that was going to the Moinho de Fado. And this particular area is one of these UNESCO World Heritage Site vineyards and has a really nice windmill as well. So it's a really scenic setting to just appreciate these massive vineyards that have these beautiful stone architecture and design. So this was a really nice way to finish off the day, particularly with the sunset hues that we had at this time of day. We then proceeded back to Madalena because we had dinner reservations at a restaurant called Sela Bar. And this place we had read really good reviews about, and we wanted to sample one of the main things that this island is known for, which is their wine, as well as some of the local fresh seafood that the Azores has plenty of access to, given their location in the Atlantic Ocean. The next day, we had planned to climb to the top of Mount Pico, which, like I mentioned, is the highest peak in all of Portugal. So we were determined to do this. We had found that a couple of the main companies that offered it would not allow us to do it just because they felt that we didn't have the right equipment, including the right types of hiking shoes and such. But we did find one person who was willing to do it with us, a mountain guide, and this was a connection that we made through our taxi driver that we had done the day prior. So we got up early to start this hike, and we did not anticipate how different the scenery and the landscape would be. In fact, we were told that it would be cold, but I think we were like, yeah, cold for Portuguese standards. We'll be fine. We wore multiple layers, but we didn't really realize that it got really snowy and icy the farther up that you went. So we were really not prepared, but I'm happy to say that we did do it. And while the skies were a bit scattered and we didn't always get the best views in the distance, I will say that regardless of the weather, even if you are visiting during the off-season, if you have an experienced guide like we had who taught you how to safely do this hike, and if you have the determination, motivation, and interest to conquer this mountain, then you will still have a very rewarding experience. Even though we didn't get the views from the top of Pico of the islands and the water, we had amazing experiences going up this. The mountain itself is really so beautiful to experience and see. I actually found the change in the climate was really fun and interesting to see, and it was just really a great personal challenge. We definitely felt very rewarded by the end of this experience. And I will say that there were points that we did not think that we were going to be able to finish it, and we were preparing to turn around, but there was just something in us that knew that if we pushed a little bit farther that we could finish it, and I'm very happy to say that we did. It was a very rewarding and wonderful experience. So if you have the opportunity to do it, I recommend that you check it out. It's not easy, but it is something that I'm really happy and proud that I completed. The next day was our last day on the island of Pico, and we were obviously tired from our hike the day prior, so we decided to just take it easy and just do some low-key things on the island. We decided to explore the town of Madalena a bit, and we walked towards the Igreja de Santa Maria Madalena. After this, we decided to enjoy some drinks on our rooftop balcony that we had at our accommodation, which was nice to just relax and enjoy the views that you got in the distance. And then we proceeded to book a taxi to the Grutas das Torres. The Grutas das Torres is a lava tube, meaning that it's kind of like these caves that are formed through ancient lava that passed through this rock, that pushed through this rock and created these beautiful lava tubes. So we did a guided tour of this and had a really great time learning about some of the differences in different lava tubes around the world, comparing them to places like Hawaii that we had been to before, and just learned a lot of really interesting information about the geology of these islands. In the end, we had a great time on the island of Pico. For us, the highlights were the UNESCO World Heritage Site of these beautiful vineyards, as well as just the overall experience of climbing Mount Pico. Have people had better weather than we did? Absolutely. And maybe we'll come back and conquer Pico again, maybe more in the summer, not so much during the off-season. But we are still so happy with the experience that we had and would not hesitate to recommend this island to you if you happen to be visiting the Azores. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to give it a like and a subscribe. Stay tuned for our next video, which happens to be the last video of this series, which is when we return to São Miguel and explore some of the leftover things that we didn't have the chance to see during our first time in São Miguel a couple episodes ago. So do check that out, where we'll wrap up the series, and I hope to see you then. Have a good one. Bye.